Chapter 22, The Fight Continued. Through the dense fabric, he could hear the Pompidets' muffled voices, Mr. Pompidet still chortling over the Mortons' offer, Mrs. Pompidet now urging James to take off his jacket and come into the kitchen for supper. "I have to put my stuff away," James said. He walked down the hall to his bedroom, closing the door behind him. Immediately, he peeled off his jacket and searched his arm for Marvin. Marvin couldn't bear to look at him. As soon as James lifted his wrist, Marvin crawled to the underside. When James turned his arm over, Marvin crawled to the other side again, out of sight. "What's wrong with you?" James asked. "Do you want to get down?" He rested his hand on the desktop, and Marvin immediately scurried across it, heading toward the wall. "Hey, where are you going, little guy?" James dropped his hand in front of Marvin, blocking the way. "Do you need to go home? I can take you like I did last time. It'll be much faster. Climb up." Furious, Marvin veered around the boy's outstretched palm and continued toward the wall. He wanted nothing to do with James. "What is it?" James persisted. "What's the matter?" This time he settled his hand gently over Marvin and scooped him up, bringing him close to his face. He looked at him with troubled gray eyes. By now, Marvin was seething, not just at James's heartless sale of his drawing, but at the indignity of being so easily thwarted when he was trying to leave in a huff. He turned his rear end toward James, gathered his legs beneath him, and sank into a small, immobile black mound. This play-dead maneuver was a common beetle strategy in the face of imminent danger. Marvin had never used it before to show his anger, but he was beginning to realize that communication with humans required a large measure of creativity. "You're mad at me," James said. Marvin didn't move. "But why?" James seemed genuinely bewildered. "Everything was fine at the museum. You were so great. You were amazing. The way you copied that drawing, you're like a genius beetle. Do you know that?" Marvin was determined not to respond. "What's the matter?" James coaxed. He was quiet for a minute. "It's your street drawing, isn't it? You don't want me to sell it." He let out a long breath and flopped into the chair at his desk. "I don't want to sell it either," he said softly. Marvin remained in his tight huddle, trying not to listen. "You know that, right?" James persisted. "I love that picture you made for me. That was my best birthday present ever." He sighed. "It's just, you probably can't understand this, but my mom, she's..." James set Marvin down on the desktop, lightly rolling him off his palm. "You can go if you want. I didn't mean to stop you." Marvin slowly uncurled his legs, but stayed where he was. James kept talking. "The thing is, she's so proud of me, you know. That's not how she is usually. And it's not even for something I did. It's for something you did." He crossed his arms on the desk and rested his head on them, his pale face close to Marvin, his breath warm and slightly salty. "It's like this is a special trick she can show off to her friends. I wish," he hesitated, "I wish she'd be proud of me for regular reasons, you know?" Marvin turned to face him. He thought of Mama and Papa, who were always ridiculously proud of him, even for things that didn't warrant it. It was like being followed around by your own personal cheering section. Sometimes it bothered him, but mostly it was pretty nice to know that his parents wholeheartedly believed he could do anything, yet were still bursting with pride when he did. He wondered if James had ever felt that way. James kept talking, his voice husky and low. "They said it wasn't my fault they got divorced. They said that over and over. It's not your fault. We still love you. You're the most important thing to us. But if I was the most important thing, how come I wasn't important enough for them to stay together?" He watched Marvin and waited, as if he thought Marvin might really know the answer. Finally, he said, "Because if they ever asked me, 'What do you want?' that's what I would have said, all of us together." Marvin crawled to the edge of James's elbow and looked up at him, not feeling angry anymore. He sighed. He saw that he would have to forgive James for the drawing. There were too many other things between them. James let out another long breath. "But you know what? If they hadn't gotten divorced, there'd be no William. So William was the one good thing that came out of it." Marvin recoiled in surprise. The Beatles all thought William was quite horrible, grabby, irrational, and dangerous. He knew that James didn't feel that way, but he hadn't ever imagined that James would see William as a blessing. However shocking, it was somehow comforting to hear that that pesky baby had brought a spark of pleasure to James's life. James sat up and rubbed his face. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," he said sheepishly. "I just like talking to you, I guess." He grinned. "And I know you won't tell anyone." He stretched out his hand again. "Come on, I'll take you home." Marvin climbed onto the boy's finger, and James headed for the kitchen. That night, after the fuss over his return, a full report of what had happened at the museum, and a stern scolding from Mama about the risks he'd taken when he disobeyed her, Marvin lay in his bed thinking about what James had said. Eventually, he called to his mother. "What is it, darling? Your father and I are about to go foraging." "I can't sleep," Marvin said. "Well, I'm not surprised. You're completely off schedule from living on human time these past few days, but you must be exhausted from your outing. What's the matter?" "I don't know. I was thinking about something James said." Mama sat on the edge of the cotton ball and stroked his shell. "What?" she asked. "About his parents getting divorced." Marvin thought back to the conversation in James's bedroom. Why don't beetles ever get divorced? His mother considered that for a moment. "Well, our lives are short, darling. What would be the point? We have so little time, we must spend it as happily as possible." She tucked the cotton fluff more securely around Marvin. "And we expect a lot less than people do. If we get through the day without being stepped on, with a little food to fill our bellies, a safe place to bed down for a few hours, and our family and friends close by, well, that's a good day, isn't it? In fact, a perfect day. Who could ask for more?" Marvin snuggled into the soft bedding and nodded sleepily. "I guess," he said. "Also, we have no lawyers," his mother added, leaving the room.